I hope I did my part right, and I think we're ready.
Excellent, thank you. Well, welcome everyone, and I'll call this meeting of the Board of Trustees, the Grand Marais Public Library, to order on this Wednesday, December 15th, 2021 at 5:04 p.m. Let's see. We have myself, Dave Mills, and we'll just go around and introduce ourselves.
Sarah McManus.
Sue McClone.
Enno Limfure. Michael Gary, representing the city of Grand Marais.
And that's who we have this evening, as well as, would staff like to introduce themselves as well?
Sure. Amanda St. John, Library Director.
Kristen Wasaski, Assistant Library Director.
Thank you. On the soundboard even, and video controls. Thank you.
Yeah.
Wow.
All right.
Talent.
I'm sorry?
I just said talent.
Yes,
Yes.
abundance.
You're there.
So we have our consent agenda here, which includes our agenda, the minutes and the bills. Are there any things anyone wants to add to the agenda or pull from the consent agenda, bills or anything?
No.
Doesn't look like it, so I'd entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I would so move.
Thank you, Councilor Garrett. We have a motion. Is there support?
I'll second.
Thank you, Sue. Motion support. Any further discussion? Otherwise, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. Moving on to the library director's report.
To start the really fun stuff first, we received notice that the Grand Marais Library has regained its 5-star status.
Yeah.
Yay.
Congratulations.
Yeah, nice
We-
work.
Yeah, thank you. We are joined by 3 other libraries in the Arrowhead out of the 5 in the state that actually got this star status, and so that's really exciting for Arrowhead too. Ely, Two Harbors, and
Baudette.
Baudette. Thank you.
Yeah, Baudette.
Wow. Go northern Minnesota.
And can you remind everyone too just what that means and why we
Yeah.
lost it and
Yeah.
then why we regained it?
Absolutely. So the American Library Association publishes a magazine, a regular magazine called the Library Journal. And this journal does a survey every year of the state reports of library statistics. So for example, in January every year, I will compile a report of library statistics regarding our visitation, how many items are in our collection, what our service population is, how many people are using our Wi-Fi, and so on. This information gets reported to the state every year, and then Library Journal can see those reports across the country and uses that data to create basically the star status, who's performing really well. The report that I submit is a fiscal year. Library Journal functions on, I think they do like a mid-year cycle. So they our years don't always line up. And you just want to know that because I'm going to tell you now why we didn't have it last year or the year before, I believe. So there was a time period when the Library Journal decided that we were going to also include Wi-Fi statistics. And if you were able to provide Wi-Fi statistics, how many people are using your Wi-Fi, then you would qualify for indexing. It took us too long to figure out how to do that here in our lovely rural town. And so we were disqualified. And again, because of the years being split, because their fiscal year is a mid-year cycle, I think it affected us 2 years in a row. But we have reappeared on their map, and we're doing great, and our status is here. So we didn't actually ever really lose it so much as we just weren't qualified to participate.
Got it.
Any questions?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
From me at least.
Okay. The next part is just some collection management things, just to talk about what we're doing in the library. We have an email service called Wowbrary. It goes out to any subscriber once a week, and it shows them everything new that we've put into the collection. This is a really exciting contribution that Kristen brought to us when she first came on during the pandemic, and it allowed people to browse our new books without coming into the library, so it was super exciting. And I just figured out how to link it to Overdrive, so it now shows people who have who are comfortable receiving an email in the first place now also can see not only the physical items that we're putting into our collection, but also all of the magazines. There's like 400 or more going in every week through the Overdrive collection, all of the ebooks, all of the e-audios, and with a click of a button, you can kind of get to the place where you can borrow these materials. So that's really exciting. And one of our newest collection items are Happy Lights. We have 5 Happy Lights. This is a technology that's supposed to enhance your mood and your focus. And we just thought it would be a lot of fun. Some other libraries are doing it. We loved it for our dark sky community. And also, some people do swear by these lights as really helping them. And I just thought it would be a nice touch after 2 years of pandemic land. So we're really looking to do something a little more fun. And so we did it. This is going to go along with, we haven't done an adult winter reading program in quite a while. We're going to do a low-key program that will include adult bingo, like book bingo. And you can check out the Happy Lights if you want to, and you can also do our adult grab bags. So we're pretty excited to start a new program this year.
Great.
So then the next thing that I really wanted to talk about were building and technology. Well, mostly building things, I think. You already know that we're working on masonry stuff. And in my report, I talked about a few things affecting our building right now. One of them is that our alarm company has alerted us we need an upgrade on one of our parts to be compatible with the technology we're communicating with. That's going to cost about $700. I think, and this might be part of our later conversation when we're talking about the library's optimization of their heat system, but I'm wondering if that shouldn't come from the 215 fund. And so I kind of want to get some clarification from you guys if this is an appropriate expense to have our technology upgraded that way. Our front door is broken. It's been problematic during the winter time for a few years, but there's something about that front door that's closest to the 2nd Avenue that it's not closing properly. And so we've been working with maintenance who tried to fix it, but the part is the door that we have is very specific. And so we've traced down the specs on the door to get the exact hinge that we think will help solve the problem, but that's just kind of going on at the library now. And then the really big thing is heating, and this will tie into our conversation later also, and I'm not sure, maybe I should save it, but our boiler, we have a boiler that died.
The boiler that died?
Yes.
Oh.
Yes, so the library has a heating system with a backup pump, so that if one pump dies, the other pump and boiler works, and one of them is dead.
So you're on the backup.
We're on the backup, and it's struggling to keep the building to temperature also. I don't know why that'd be the case if you technically only need one, but we are trying to get that fixed. And several of the pieces have been fixed already. The last parts that I know were being worked on, one was a circuit board had been fried. It was corroded on one side. And there is, I don't know what that thing was called now. I've forgotten. I wrote it down.
Flux capacitor.
No. There's a switch relay. Maybe that's the circuit board part. But there's something to do with combustion, where the technician was draining liquid out of our machine.
Huh.
And
condenser or something?
maybe.
Huh.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and also trying to clean something off. But the part basically cannot be replaced. So
Hmm.
that's where we left off, like just this week.
Mm.
And I do think we should come back to this when I talk to you about the optimization of the library,
Okay.
their our heat system.
So,
Sorry to be so casual with my language. I'm learning.
no,
so
no.
much.
I just was, reading through the agenda, I was understanding the pump was out, but it's the boiler as well. Is that?
The pump, so the, Lenny from maintenance replaced a part in our pump, and it didn't solve the problem.
Okay. But
And then
Dang.
inside the boiler, there was a corroded circuit board, and there's also another
Oh.
problem with some kind of drainage or something that's happening in that part.
New boilers are really hard to get right now.
Mhm.
That's what the technicians suggested. They said it could be potentially 3 to 4 months just for getting the part to come in.
Hmm. That was Jamar, is that right?
No.
Oh,
Right now, with these pieces, I'm mostly talking about Lenny Building Maintenance and
Mhm.
also Cook County Heating and Plumbing. I think I've got their name right.
mhm.
yeah.
Is there a machinist in our county that could possibly make it?
Not a circuit board.
Oh,
um,
circuit board.
but-
That was just
Yeah, but maybe, I don't
Maybe we
know.
could
And
probably.
the circuit board is replaced.
Oh,
So
okay.
that part got replaced.
Well, that's a,
But the machine is still producing error codes that even the manufacturer's technicians have not been able to solve.
dang.
It's throwing the codes, but is it performing at all, or it's underperforming?
There's no performance.
Okay.
It's
And then-
communicating error codes, I'll say.
Cool.
Oh, but there's two boilers,
Yeah.
Yes.
but the backup isn't doing it.
The backup system, you're right, so there's a pump that's dead
Yeah?
that
Oh,
got parts replaced, and there's a boiler. I just know it as the red things over there and the big box on the wall, right?
Yep,
There's two
that
big
sounds
boxes
right.
on the wall.
That sounds right to me.
Okay.
Yeah. So then, but did it get bled, the air bled out of it? Did
I
that
don't know.
happen?
I
Okay.
don't know. I have to talk to Lenny about whether they
Okay.
got to the stage of bleeding the air.
Okay.
Bleeding.
Yeah.
Huh. Well, so we're gonna talk more about this, is that what you're saying?
I
Not
think
right
it's
now.
I think it's a good idea to carry this into new business where
Yeah.
we're going to talk about the library's optimization of our heating system, because I think you should see the
Yeah.
whole picture at one time.
Okay.
Because the severity of this problem was not as large when I first emailed you, or first
Thank you, okay.
spoke
Okay.
to the board.
Yeah.
Got it.
Okay.
Okay.
And I apologize again, but that is my report.
Yeah.
That's all I gotta say.
Well, and then, but there's also the heat pump and the Shane Steel side of things, right? Or is that also into the?
I can talk to you about this a little bit, just a little bit. So Shane Steele is the city sustainability coordinator, and he is working in the area trying to figure out, best projects for different sustainability topics and a little bit of energy and efficiency. And he came to talk to us in the library about installing an air source heat pump to improve energy efficiency using an energy source that's, supposed to be cleaner than propane. And we just wanted to see, what would that be for the library, or, why would that be a great idea for us, and what would it all entail? And I was really, we're waiting to hear back from Jamar what their assessment is, because they've come out to do a free, Jamar Company from Duluth is a company that the city generally works with, and they came out to do a courtesy on-site survey to see what that would take. And I haven't heard back yet, but when I hear some information, if you'd like to speak with Shane, he's very excited to talk to you too, just about what he was thinking and why.
Yeah, I'm quasi-familiar, not directly, but just theoretically. And they're very, like, it's the way to go. It really is. They only give you the efficiency down to a certain temperature, and then you have to go back to the propane. But it's like night and day down to that temperature. So there is significant savings. But if we have to replace a boiler as well, you know, then it's a little bit trickier of a math problem, I'd say. So if our focus and our values are on that sustainability piece, which I would support certainly for the longer term, then maybe it's not as tricky. And then also, that in theory would prolong the life of a replacement boiler. You know, if you're leaning on the heat pump more and getting less use out of the propane boiler, then that should extend that life. So maybe the math isn't that hard after all. But I'm very interested. I also know that they're having a very hard time finding installers for the heat pump. So if Jamar is willing to do that, that's pretty exceptional. And then of course there's the sourcing of the
pump
units themselves.
Right.
Like I'd be interested in that timeline, because I think that's also a hurdle that they're experiencing. But that's very exciting in my mind. That's what I know.
Are you gonna stick to that then?
Well, for the time being, I think.
Okay, all right.
Till we learn more. All right, so that's the end of your report.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Amanda? Right, Neil. Then we can move on to committee reports, of which there are none. Which kind of ties into previous conversation we had about the purpose of the committees and standing committees, and Administrator Roth was kind enough to forward on the League of Minnesota Cities information, which I read pretty thoroughly, including the case laws, which did not actually apply to the committee side of things, but
Right.
still educational. And then contacted the county attorney about what we had as far as guidance from MCIT, is the risk management company for Cook County and most of the counties in Minnesota. And a little more ambiguous, I would say, when it comes to standing committees. And I don't want to make a stink of this and be difficult, but I did want to make sure we were accurate and had an accurate understanding of it. It's really hard to have an accurate understanding of ambiguity. When it comes to what they consider standing committees, what I understand it as is that committee makes a decision, brings it to the board rubber stamps it, versus an advisory committee making recommendations, bringing to the board, and the board asks questions and discusses and scrutinizes it. And in Cook County, in our community, not the organization, well, and the organization, but in our community, I have yet to see a rubber stamp. It's usually pretty well discussed, both at the committee level as well as the actual authority level. So I think we would be safe, but in respect to Administrator Roth's concerns, I don't have a problem with having our committee work either be public and recorded, or just us as a board do the committee work and not have committees. So that's all of my lecture for the evening on this. Does anyone have any other thoughts about it, or questions, either about the memo sent or what I just spewed?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I like the idea, considering that we're so small. I think, at least at the moment, it kind of makes sense to just have us do the work that is. And, you know, I don't see any need to really, I mean, occasionally onesie, twosies, that kind of thing, but really, I think, you know, us as a group can really tackle most of the things that are going to come before us, and, you know, that would just be my 2 cents about it, and it would easily fall in line with what Administrator Ross was saying and all that. Even though I agree with you, I do think that the language points to us being more advisory rather than anything else. But anyway, my 2 cents.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. Ms. Sarah, did you have some thoughts?
I was just nodding in agreement. I think being a small board and a well-attended board, we could handle what would be committee work in a regular board meeting.
Yeah. So far, that seems to be the case, 100%. Other concern I had in the past, at least, was the meetings got to be a bit longer.
Sure.
And but we have yet to have any of those. And frankly, I think we could afford to be a little bit longer if we needed to do some committee
Yeah.
work.
For sure.
So there's a little bit of a balance there too, and I want to be respectful of people's time, and
Yep.
and if need be, we could schedule committee work like just after a board meeting if someone needs to duck out, and we can have our standing committees do that. So, but I think, yeah.
Yeah,
But for the time being, I think it sounds like
Yeah.
that's okay.
Yeah, we could tie them right into the agenda and,
Mhm.
yep.
Thoughts?
So would we need to unofficially, officially disband the committees then, or just not fill them for the next year if we went this way?
It's a very good point. I hadn't thought about that. What's needed in our policy?
Yeah.
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 I didn't investigate that part any further at this point, but yeah, that's a really good point.
Although, I mean, I don't think that any of the committees are closed, and so, you know, we're all here as committee, or some of us are on various ones of the committees, right? And so any one of us could be on, or attend another committee meeting. You know, there's no reason why we couldn't. So if it was an add-on to an agenda, we could say it's this committee, you know, that would give us some kind of focus.
Sure.
Is meeting today.
And now the committee's meeting, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
We could just roll
Okay.
like that rather
Yeah.
than have to try
Makes
and
sense.
go back and, because it's convenient for us in this moment, but in the future, it might be nice to have it not that way, so I'd rather not undo it for people who
Sure.
our future selves.
Note to future self.
Yeah.
That makes sense to me. I'm comfortable with that, and we can look at policies, and if there's any problem there, we can revisit that. But no, that sounds good, I think. Yep. Okay.
And at the next meeting of the board is when you would assign officers and committees, if you wanted to.
We could sign everybody to everything.
And we would all get a trophy.
I like this idea. Can we have special hats?
Yeah.
That'd be the best.
I think that's necessary.
Yeah, for sure. Then we would know which committee we were doing that day.
And we could change hats sometimes, you know?
Yep.
Fun. Okay. Well, so that's some committee talk there. Down to communications, we talked a little bit about the memo there.
Yep.
Any further thoughts there? I don't know, Anna or Sue, if you had any input or further no, okay. And then the 2020 Minnesota Public Library Annual Report there, Pandemic Trends. Pretty interesting, just trying to
Yeah.
compare us to the state and to see what's happening. I'm very proud of our library and our staff for what has happened and what is still happening during this pandemic, and there's some similarities, and then I also think like, well, I mean, yes, there were interruptions and restrictions and decreases, but I still felt as an individual wanting to use the library, I still felt like I had pretty significant access, even when the building was closed. And so, and I know that there's community members out there that didn't feel the same way because what they got more from the library was going in and meeting with a group, you know.
Yeah.
And yes, that would definitely have an impact on that activity, but, you know.
Yeah.
Anyone else have any observations about that report?
Yeah, well, I would definitely agree. It was nice to see the comparison to the other libraries and that kind of thing. And yeah, and I would also agree. I mean, I guess, like you, I go to get a thing or whatever, and it's not necessarily that I'm there to meet people. So for my purposes, it was more than sufficient, and I was glad to have it.
Yeah, I always do meet people, but that's just a bonus. You know?
It's an extra added bonus.
I don't count on it, but I could.
I'll be in and out like no.
Yeah,
no,
right.
I'm
Yeah,
not.
nobody believes that. Yeah.
Still there.
Was there anything more you wanted to say, Amanda, about the report? Okay.
No, just sharing FYI, keeping
Yeah.
everybody up to date.
Then we have our two fund statements, and at some point, it would be great to have some more, you know, we had the opportunity, was Marais up, it was Marais that was up here. I did not take advantage of that. I don't think any of our board did. But I think it would be helpful at some point, maybe to invite Kim and or Administrator Roth for perspective and just the different funds, and maybe talk more about the 215 account, and the differences and all that. And we could tie that into our financial committee during a regular meeting. But no real rush on that. It was just something that popped into my head that would be useful, I thought, for the board. And then, unless anyone has anything else, we can move into new business. The optimization of the library's heat systems.
Da-dum, da-dum.
Okay, so, as I mentioned, Shane Steele, the city's sustainability coordinator, and I were just talking about opportunities to improve the library's energy efficiency. And we happened to get this great opportunity where Jamar Company was willing to come up and do an on-site estimate for installing an air source heat pump system in the library, complimentary, as a complimentary service. And on the day,
I'm sorry?
Jamar was willing to do the assessment
Oh,
of our,
okay.
you know, our, what it would take to do an air source heat pump and whether we were a good candidate for something like that.
Yeah.
And on that day, while they were visiting, which was November 18th, we were already having heat problems. Like, staff were noticing that the building was not getting to temperature. So it was about 62 degrees in the staff room. And while Jamar was looking around this company, then we mentioned that the staff room in general gets to be colder, especially because the cold air comes down the hill and it hits that side of the building. And so if we were looking at some kind of air source equipment, we would want to consider that this area of the building is not as, what would you say, consistent. It's not as consistent. And so when we mentioned that we were actually having problems, that the coldness that they were feeling was not normal, then they went into our boiler room and noticed that there was an error code on the boiler and a circulation pump had stopped working. Okay, so they're just on site visiting and checking things out, and we happen to have all this good stuff going on, and they were right there talking to us about it. But they weren't there to fix these problems. They just kind of alerted me that they were there. And while they were there, they also took a look at our system and realized that our in-floor heating system right now is set to 80 degrees outgoing, 70 degrees incoming or something, and it should actually be set to something closer to 120 degrees, 130 degrees to actually be effective and do its job. They noticed that our valves were airlocked and needed to be bled. And they commented that dust in the heat registers can reduce efficiency up to 30%, and they need to be cleaned regularly. So while they were there recognizing all these different problems, they let us know that they would be willing to come back and do an assessment and to optimize the building for us. And I don't think that's been done in a very long time. So they were proposing that they could probably get back to us in 4 to 8 weeks of our request, and they estimated their service visit would be about $1,500 for time and materials. And I really felt like if our in-floor heating is not doing its job, and they were, touching different pipes and things and going, I don't think this is working the way it's supposed to, and this is not quite right, I'd really love to have them back.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the proposal here that I was requesting, is that we have this company come back and optimize our system for us and take a look at some of these issues that they can already see exist. But after that happened and they left, we still had this boiler problem with an error code that was being addressed. So I had the city's maintenance team came out and took a look at it. They tried to fix the circulation pump, and we had Cook County, they knew that there were some parts that still needed another level of a technician support, and so they called Cook County Heating and Plumbing to come. And then since they've been back, they repaired the corroded circuit board that I mentioned, and the combustion exhaust, or whatever this thing is that's actually creating a liquid in one of the boilers. And then after solving all these little problems, the last that I heard, I think it was yesterday, or the day before, I think it was yesterday, the last that I heard was that it looks like the boiler is probably going to need to be replaced. So a little bit of my confusion here is because things are moving quickly, and also I need to touch base with Lenny, who gives me this summary of what's important for me to know. So I don't know I kind of don't know where this leads us. I really was just coming to propose this optimization and having funding for that, but we need to start with maybe some of the basic problems.
Sounds like we need a facilities committee. That was a joke.
All right.
Most people laughed. Okay.
Yes.
Now that, there wouldn't be a way to do that air source heat pump system to replace the whole system? You talked a little bit about that only works up to a certain level.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it only goes to,
Like 20,
yeah, something like that. Yeah.
yeah.
So
There
at below
are-
20 degrees, that's,
Cold climate ones that go a little bit lower
oh, okay.
now that they're starting to use. I don't know if they're building sized for this or if they're just residential. But
Yeah.
it still would only get you down to, I think, 0.
Which is significant.
Which is good,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
but we know that we need to heat
Below that.
well below that.
Yeah. Well, in all seriousness, I would like to be more involved because I like to learn things and I like to understand things. And some of this doesn't totally make sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
Like the air return line.
Water return.
Okay, water
Water
return.
return.
Okay, that makes sense now. Yeah. And valves are air locked, and yes, okay. Mhm. But I think Lenny, I mean, he's gonna know. Like I don't need to be there if Lenny's gonna be there.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I just like to understand things more. Sorry, but were you going further with the air pump?
Well, I was just saying, if the boiler's out and the system could replace it,
Oh,
then it would be a fairly simple decision for my part, is that we just replace it and leave the boiler away and leave the boiler alone. But if it has to have both in there,
well,
Sounds like no matter what, the boiler probably comes first. And to prioritize, it would be, this other thing would be cool, but I don't think you have any choice but to deal with whatever.
especially if it's getting colder.
Yes.
Yeah. Of course, if there are indeed 2 boilers, maybe we only do need to replace it with, and we'd still have the one but I don't know. Like, the
My-
pros would know better than,
Yeah, my initial understanding of so we have three problems that we're addressing tonight. One is I've given you a peek into this conversation that I'm having about a possible building enhancement, which would be the air source heat pump thing. My understanding with that is that the propane would remain intact ultimately, and it would supply the year-round base layer of heat to the building, whereas the air source heat pump, I think, like what Sarah and David are talking about, it's going to be really effective to certain temperatures and sort of help even out the heating in the library during those time periods, but there will be gaps, and those gaps need the boiler. I don't know if they need two.
oh, can I pause for a second?
Yeah.
The air source heat pumps can actually also cool the building,
Oh,
Yes.
yes.
so that's worth
So-
noting.
Yeah, and one of the things that I wanted to bring up maybe when Shane is here, so we'll just do it now and come back to it again later. The library has these little air conditioning units all around the building. As those die, they're not really replaceable. The air source heat pump system can do heating and cooling and could be a part of our replacement strategy on those. So there's the one part is the air source heat pump conversation. Another part is the boiler conversation. And the third part is the optimization. Okay, so in my mind, given what I understand today, I agree with Sue that we really need to figure out how to solve the boiler.
And what that costs, yeah.
I can't see that Jamar would be able to optimize their system if they don't even know what it is, because it's broken. And then the air source heating pump thing is a conversation in the background that would come forward later, in my mind. But I guess what I really need for sure from everybody here is making sure that I'm spending our budget the way that you want. Like, what are your priorities for the care of the building? What do you actually want to spend money on? And I think these are appropriate expenses to come from the 215 fund. And do you have any stipulations or things you want me to watch for in terms of approving work or getting the work done? And while you're thinking about that, I would like to bring us back to the Great Lakes alarm upgrade and just because I think that needs to, I think that's appropriate for 215 too, like a one-time upgrade to our technology.
I would like to hear more about that, because that was another thing that didn't make sense to me. As far as, because I've heard that 3G will no longer be usable, but my understanding is anything 4G is still fine. And so, I mean, it will, yes, need to be replaced, but what they're saying makes me think it needs to be replaced sooner than later. And my understanding is that we can still use that, but I don't know.
It works now, is that correct? It isn't dysfunctional?
It is working right now. So the letter that I have is, as of September 2021, there's a typo in here, I think. As of September 2021, AT&T issued a letter stating that they would be upgrading cell towers across the United States from 5G to the new 5G LTE towers, and that they would finish this upgrade by February of 2021. These are the towers that your cellular units use for monitoring, security, and fire. You have an older cellular unit with 5G, and the unit will stop communicating your system signals.
Did it say when, though?
They said that AT&T's communication was by February 2021. Since we're still
2022?
Which has passed.
Sorry, yeah, sorry, 2022.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I think that's the typo I was mentioning.
Okay.
Well, and the reason I'm confused, I guess, is because what they identify as 4/5G and then 5G/LTE. The 5G is in the middle there, right? That's the mutual, that's the
Right.
commonality. And then what I'm confused about is, yeah, I guess I'm just confused in general. So, if we need to do it, we need to do it. Great, let's do it. But I'm just like, really? We need to do that? And maybe I shouldn't.
I can
Shouldn't-
look into it a little more.
Is there any, yeah, do we
It would
have
be-
somebody to verify this?
Yeah, and maybe I'll just ask Rowan, you know, he's now the MIS director at the county, but he was the tower guy, just to help me understand a little bit, because he would probably be able to answer it,
Yeah.
to make me understand.
Yeah.
To make me understand.
I can
Um,
reach out also to Sundu Technology and get their recommendation.
Oh, yeah, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, get some more eyes on the project.
Yeah, I would agree. I'd like to hear more. Because, yeah, that doesn't quite jive.
Something, yeah, and because my understanding is like, yes, 3G gone, but 4G I thought was going to be around for a little while yet. So that's why I'm confused. But do you know anything, Sarah?
I don't, and I would be surprised if the Grand Marais Tower is updated by,
There's that too, right?
Well, there is
Yeah.
that piece, yes.
First thing is up the trail tower, right? And no.
yes. But I think Rowan would be able
Yeah.
to summarize it very nicely. He's an
Yeah,
excellent
yeah.
explainer.
Did they send you an email about all that?
A letter.
It's a,
Oh, a physical?
it's a physical
Okay.
paper. I can copy the communication to your folder for next, you put it in the next month folder.
Yeah, and I would just pass that on to Rowan and have him
Yeah.
get an eyes on it. But I think talking to Jeremy too is top-notch idea.
Yeah.
Okay. So where does that leave us?
So going back to the heating system,
Yes.
it sounds like, yeah, boilers, number one priority. And I would bring in Jamar, you know, it's 4 to 6 weeks out, so, you know, and even say, hey, if you can, when you're coming up, if you can bring a boiler and install it, we'll throw that in there for you. You can see, if, you know, yeah, and then after their assessment, then we can look at the forced air.
Yeah, and I mean, I would like to see what those numbers might look like, because it might make sense to do like a patch for now and then know that we're gonna have this coming or not. I mean, maybe that won't make sense, but it'd be nice to get some numbers to like what we
Am I correct
already
that,
spending.
that the forced air is, oh shoot, I can't remember the name of it. In our church, when we built the new fellowship hall, we had a geothermal system put in.
Wow.
Cool.
To do that, then they would suck the heat off of the water,
Yeah.
just like they're doing with
Yeah.
the air. And yeah, that we did like $8,000 we put in, because that's what it took to heat the building, is so we put $8,000 on that, and it was like $1,200 a year we paid. But when it got down to 20 below in South Dakota, in northern South Dakota, we could only get the building up to about 60 degrees,
Oh.
because it couldn't pull enough
Oh, I couldn't keep up.
air off of the water. So that's probably what it is with the air too, is that they pull the heat out of the air. And yeah,
Not much heat in the air at 20
no,
degrees.
below 20.
Not so much.
But yeah, it was a good system, and
Yeah,
it did save a lot of money.
yeah, the geothermals are, I think, better, but much more upfront, because you gotta drill wells or have
Yeah.
it all excavated or whatever. But they can go more year round, generally. Back to that, so it sounds like, so there's the two boilers, right? And one of them's broke, we have the backup, but the system's not functioning. So what I'm kind of assuming, maybe falsely, is that if we do fix the system, that backup boiler should be able to heat the building. Is that a possibility, or why do we have a backup if it can't do the job, you know?
Backups never can do the job. It's always that way.
Yeah, they just limp you along, I guess, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of my questions too, is why do we have two systems that look absolutely identical? One is to back up the other if it fails, but it's not heating the building. Why is that, why is that a thing? That seems weird.
Yeah, we may as well have
Happens
four of them.
everywhere. So,
Okay.
maybe they don't spend enough time fine tuning the backup. But,
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, servicing it, or.
yeah, or
regular
what,
yeah,
all the
yeah.
tweaking that goes on with the main unit, but.
And machines that don't get used tend to deteriorate faster anyway.
Yeah,
Oh.
that's true too.
So it seems like boiler fixing is your primary priority, and whatever it takes, you've got to. Then you could have Jamar tweak things, but not till you know what your heating system is. And then the last one, a future thought. Does that make sense?
It seems right to me.
Yeah. Yeah. And then as for the expenditures, or, you know, where we're gonna fund it from, you had mentioned the 215, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, I mean, I'm just really rough on it now because I can't quite remember, but it did seem to my mind that that would be, you know, something that could be used from there, but I can't quite remember. Do you?
I think we
Yeah.
used that for, the office renovations. That was like a one-time project, right? And, yeah, so that seems in line with that. Because that's what that fund is for
Yeah.
one-time expenditures,
Yeah.
projects. But if there's more specifics to it, I can't recall either. If it needs to have a particular emphasis on the one-time,
Yeah, I don't remember.
expenditure, then that would be valuable, but I think this would qualify, so.
And my understanding is it can't be used for operational expenses. That's
Right.
what our operational budget is for. It can't be used to support personnel, but it could be used to use, on a one-time contractor that's fulfilling a work. And then I believe that the board decides how the money should be spent and what it's being applied for. There's some restricted money that's given by donors, and we'll say, I only want you to use this on the collection, I only want you to use this on the building, and we'd have to look through files to figure out where that is, but the majority of the money, I think, is for future planning and whatever you decide, as long as it's not personnel or general operations. So we've also used it in the past for like the building a new office. We upgraded all the library's technology and paid for it out of that button, out of the 215. If we've needed to buy a new piece of furniture or something, it's come out of there.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's some wiggle room in there for programming, because, for example, the Library Friends, when they provide us grants, or if Arrowhead Library System provides us a grant, that money, it goes into the 215, so that's another one of the normal expenditures, is if I'm paying for a speaker to come to the library, you'll see it come out of the 215.
Well, if you need board approval, make a motion that we use 215 to pay for new boiler and for the optimization work with Jamal.
We have a motion, is there support?
I second.
Further discussion? I would like to know what the expenses are first. I would feel much better about that.
Yeah, I'd like to get a proposal and.
Yeah, but I'd also like to understand, and I think you're right. I think that's what we're gonna have to do is boiler, optimize. But I still wonder if this is an opportunity to shift gears. And timeline, certainly a factor. Like if it's gonna take twice as long to get the heat pump, yeah, that's probably not gonna work. But but maybe, I don't know. I just wanna have a better understanding of everything. And I don't know but I don't want staff or patrons to be cold, so,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
there's that.
How soon would you get estimates for this work? Boiler work can be really costly.
Yeah.
So I just found out on Tuesday that the boiler was pretty much done. I think it was yesterday. It's Wednesday.
Wow. So not much time.
So my next job is to get in touch with Lenny and to talk to him about the full scope of what he sees happening and what needs to happen next and why. And I'm not really sure what the proposal would be from that point. So it's a communication between me and Lenny. Up to this point, given the nature of the problems, I've just delegated to Lenny, and he's, fixing the problems that he's aware of, calling in the next layer of support for the problems they're aware of. This is the moment where we switched into a pretty significant expenditure.
Mm-hmm.
And so I haven't spoken with him yet about what's going to happen next.
Okay.
And I'm assuming you mean the boiler work and not the air source heat pump, because the timeline on that is waiting for Jamar to respond.
Mm.
Maybe we should start with finding out what this first work is going to cost.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good, and there could be some parallel inquiries happening, but,
Yeah, which we should do. I mean, that makes sense to have
yeah.
both those things running in case we are at that moment where we are going to switch it up.
And I don't want to hold anything up, but
Yeah,
I
for
would
sure.
love to be involved, like I said, I like to learn and understand, so I would love to be involved in that.
Mhm.
If there's a walkthrough with Lenny or whatever, just to see, I think there's value for me personally, as well as a board. I think
Mhm.
there's value for us to try to gather that, and to assist you, Amanda, if at all possible. But I don't want to be a
So,
hindrance.
but clarify, at the moment, the backup is working, there is heat in there.
At the moment,
But it's not as reliable.
yeah. It's
60 degree or,
It's about 62 to 64 degrees. It really depends on the weather outside. It's warmer today, so it's 66.
Mhm.
I've purchased a couple of desk heaters for my
Okay.
staff because, especially us in the back room, we're taking that 62 degree weather for most of the day. The patron areas are warmer. They're also closer to the source of heat. And both Jamar and Cook County Heating and Plumbing have commented with great humor on how complex our system is, intended to be efficient and mostly efficient, but also complex. So, for example, we have in-floor heating poured in the adult fiction, nonfiction area. Is that
Okay.
right? But not in the staff room. And in the staff room, we have forced air.
huh.
We have registers on the wall. And so we think that's the part that's calling heat differently, but also know that, Jamar noticed that our in-floor heating is set to 80, 70 instead of 120 whatever, so
Yeah.
it is a complex system. It's not, you don't just walk over and turn that thermostat up like at home.
Well, when you're running on just the backup, you do have, and you feel like it's not working very efficiently, you do have to worry about backups go
Yeah.
out sometimes.
Yeah.
In our experience, when the backup's running, they always go out, actually.
Yeah.
I mean, it does happen, and then you're really in a spot.
Yeah.
So,
So I want to make sure I walk out of here with a clear information from an ambiguous situation that's developing as we're speaking.
So we have a motion on the floor. I don't know if we need, in the conversation, if we need to put that on the table that until we get solid numbers.
That's what I would prefer.
Okay.
Is that, I mean, so,
I
okay. You can withdraw the motion, or?
Yeah, or maybe, one of the things that we wouldn't want to have happen is to have, if there's an emergency, I think we would want it to be able to be solved quickly and to be able to, and maybe that's already in our bylaws, like I can't think in the moment that you could just spend the money and we would just figure it out. But we may want to propose, like, in the event.
Well, we
up to
can
a
also
certain-
call an emergency meeting if that's,
No, fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough, yeah, you're right. That's probably a better way to do it.
but I don't know. What would support you the most, do you think, Amanda? What would you be most comfortable with?
What I would like to commit to is I would like to meet with Lenny and make sure that my story matches his, like make sure that his assessment is matching what the last technician in our building said to me.
Okay,
Okay?
Yep.
Because there might be a gap.
Yep.
I would like to find out what our next steps are. It might be fixing a part, in which case I intend to go ahead, and
Yes.
it might be replacing an entire boiler system, in which case I can request a quote for the
Mhm.
work
Mhm.
and the extent of what that work looks like, and I can report back to you
Mhm.
when I have more information. And I'd like that information for myself and for you to be kind of clear. Here are the problems that we've addressed. Here are the problems that remain. Here's the intended solution and how much it would cost. So I think I'd like to, especially if the boiler is going to take 3 to 4 months to be purchased anyway, I think there will be a timeline where you'll be able to respond and
Mhm.
have more input. But I don't, like some of you are saying, I don't want to take away my ability to respond either.
Mhm.
So I'd like to just follow up with you
Mhm.
with some information.
That'd be great. And if need be, maybe we can do an email vote, or we can call a special meeting or an emergency meeting or
Mhm.
whatever. Don't want to leave you
Building
hanging or
committee.
staff by any means, but would like to understand things more and
Definitely.
have a better grasp of costs. Because I'm guessing it could be 10 grand, like easy.
Mhm.
Easily.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's nothing to sneeze at.
Do we know how old the boiler is right now? Or when it was last installed?
It feels so
Something
new
like
to me.
40 years. I thought it was older. Something like 40 years. I'm
Oh,
not entirely-
really?
Oh, so
I
it's
just
not
assumed it was,
new
I
in the
assumed it was
building.
brand new from the.
Is it
Oh.
new from? Okay,
Oh,
that would be.
okay. It might, yeah, we'll
I
see.
feel like they've got multiple systems. I'm not sure.
Sure.
Let's find out. Let's find out. Not guess.
That's a huge,
Let's
that
find out
changes,
how old
yeah.
are the
Yeah.
how old are the boilers.
That changes my,
Yeah.
that could change my whole perspective on it.
Mm.
Then I would be sneezing all day.
At 10 grand.
Yeah, if it's 40 years old.
Yeah, whoa.
That'd be great. So leaving tonight, yes, I think your plan of attack sounds great.
Good, and it's
Let-
recorded. I can play it back.
Yeah, yeah.
Make sure I remember what I said.
Follow up with Lenny. I would love to
Yeah.
be part of that and get a little mini tour just so I can understand. But
Okay.
if I'm holding you up because I'm flaky or whatever, just forget about me. And to be clear, it's county heating and plumbing, not Cook County heating and plumbing.
Oh, thank you very
Yeah,
much.
Okay, so, and then following up with them. Otherwise, if they're hard to get a hold of, because everyone's in high demand, there are other plumbers who are also in high demand, but we can talk more about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
I think, yeah. Rich Palmer could be, I think he used to work for Como. I don't know if he still does.
That's the technician who's working with us. He
Oh,
seems to be
okay.
pretty familiar with our building.
Oh, okay.
Also
okay.
with Como Oil and Propane.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And then Jim Matson of Viking, I usually walk in there and ask them all kinds of questions, so they're very helpful. And
Mhm.
there's also Matt Farley in Lutsen, but I think he's very booked. And then I think Jay's Heating out in Hoveland, I believe. And then there's a guy in town who I'm blanking on his name.
Rob Nosker.
And then there's Nosker too, yeah. And that's not who I was thinking of, but thank you,
Yeah.
yep. So there's some
There are
options,
some-
but everyone is,
So busy.
yeah, busy and or retired or retiring or what have you, so.
This is a community that could use the arrival of a new plumber or two.
Oh, yeah.
And apprentices.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So yes, Lenny, a pro, follow-up. Is that clear enough?
Yes.
Do you feel comfortable?
I do.
Okay.
Comfortable-ish.
Yeah.
I think we're on the same page, and
Yeah.
that's important.
Yeah.
All right. Well, so that is, under new business, the optimization of the library's heat systems. Then the schedule of the library closures for 2022. Oh, that's handy, thank you.
Oh, thank you.
We set these, that's what we do.
You set them. I proposed them based on circulation, visitation, prior history, and this is essentially the same schedule that we had in place last year.
I have a couple questions for the board, and maybe for you as well, Amanda, if you could help. Does this schedule need to coincide with any labor contracts? Or how does that work? Can you talk about that interface?
The board determines the service levels of the library.
Thank you.
If we are open on a union holiday, staff receive time and a half, I think. And for a full-time employee, that's actually, I think it's 2.5 times. Just understand that it's a larger expense. And it can also be sometimes trickier to staff, especially, for example, Christmas Day or something, when people tend to leave town anyway. It can be really hard to maintain the staffing levels, even if they're desirable, or they're getting paid extra to work. Did I answer your question?
I think so, maybe not directly, but
Okay.
my question is answered. I do see a discrepancy between Christmas Eve and Christmas Day.
Mm-hmm.
We're missing Sunday in there.
Christmas Day is on Sunday, so the holiday's observed on Monday.
Okay.
Yes. And Christmas Eve is not a union holiday, but it is the most requested day off, and we also do very slow business when we have in the past been open on that day.
I'm fully supportive of it being closed.
Yeah.
Library, yeah. I was going to ask about the board's thoughts about being open on Indigenous Peoples' Day. And then I was also going to ask about Juneteenth, if we wanted to recognize that. That's something the county is talking about in our collective bargaining units. And
Okay.
both the feds and the state are declaring it. I don't think it's yet a paid holiday for the state, and I can't remember what the feds determined, but that's just something that we might want to think about, and this would be an appropriate time to set that. And that's where it kind of...
I'd love to
Okay.
talk about this a little bit, David, because as I was preparing the library holiday schedule, I couldn't figure out, why is the library traditionally open on Indigenous Peoples' Day? None of the other union holidays are we open, only this one. And it was traditionally Columbus Day. I still couldn't figure it out, like, was it because kids are out of school or something and we're trying to accommodate the public coming in? I did some research on this and don't have an answer about our local situation, but I have found that many of the other libraries in the Arrowhead library system swapped a union holiday from Columbus Day, away from Columbus Day, to the day after Thanksgiving. So when they did that, their libraries were then open. And so what we're doing, I think, is aligning with what's commonly practiced in the region, but I don't think there's another reason for it. We're very well attended on this day, and also on the day that would be Juneteenth. Because Juneteenth came to my mind as well, as to whether that would end up in city conversations as a new union, an added holiday. And I really come down to thinking about this in terms of, we are closed to honor President's Day. We are closed to honor our veterans. We are closed to honor a Catholic holiday, a Christian holiday, I'll say. but we're gonna be open on Indigenous Peoples' Day, so where are we best showing respect? Are we best showing respect by staying closed and honoring the holiday the way that we do other holidays, or are we showing the most respect by being open and giving people access and information?
Right.
And that comes into play with Juneteenth as well, because I was
Yeah.
wondering where I would put that if I had to choose.
Mhm.
Mhm. Hmm.
What do y'all think? That's a,
Yeah.
well put.
I mean, I think that we should get Juneteenth in there.
Mhm.
And it is a tricky thing to be open or not open. Just because of the attendance. I mean, people are coming in and
Yeah, it's such an opportunity
for
to-
education and.
Yeah, exactly.
And I feel too, just, you know, pro-union, I mean, that people are getting paid well for that day, and they're doing what libraries do, you know? So it's kind of a win for everybody in some ways. Now, again, that's just one person's perspective. I could definitely see, you know, like, well, I should also be able to go home that day and be with my family and celebrate the way that we do, so. Anyway. But in that, I still would like to see Juneteenth in there.
And, so as a board, we're deciding closed or open, right? We're not deciding paid holiday or not.
Right.
That's where the
Yeah.
city, the unions get involved. So, yeah, the question in my mind, which I think is kind of getting asked over and over, is are we showing respect more by educating and being open, or are we showing respect more by being closed and allowing staff to have that time off?
It's a good argument either way.
Yeah.
This is why it's hard to decide.
Yeah.
And that's our only mechanism that's what.
Ours is open or closed. That's what our, yeah.
Yeah.
So I feel,
Well,
yes, go ahead, please.
Since our county is 90% white, since I don't know our staff, but I would think that having opportunities for education on those days, where people wouldn't hear those stories in other places and they all on the national scene, it would be better served, I think, to promote diversity, to have programs on those days and to be open. That would be a much better thing to say, and to say, hey, we're promoting diversity, we're promoting other narratives, and, you know, which is in line with our values, rather than saying, well, we're gonna go fishing, go hiking, and don't think about this at all, but because you get an extra day off, but you're not really sure why.
I think, kind of going off of that, I think, insofar as Juneteenth goes, I would agree with that in terms of being open and having it recognized. Like, it's not even here to be recognized. So having that in there and being recognized, I think, is really important. And for the time being, I think being open makes sense. On the other hand, I think Indigenous Peoples' Day, I would prefer to see that as I'd like people to get paid for that day, our employees, just my 2 cents.
Oh, they do, right? Yeah.
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 And so,
Yeah.
so like if you were normally scheduled for that day, you would get paid. Is that essentially it?
Holiday pay, yeah.
Holiday pay, yeah. So then but on Indigenous Peoples' Day, I would prefer to see that closed that day and have that be an off day. Because I feel like in terms of our relationship with our Indigenous peoples that have
yeah.
been here, I feel like that's a different story,
That is.
especially if that's how we're,
But
that's our only mechanism.
excuse me.
Yeah.
But you haven't determined yet what school is doing on that day, right?
No.
Because that
No.
might be a factor. I mean, if there's a day off, then it's a really nice time for kids to get to the library and maybe have some presentations or something. Your point is really good, but it might be nice to coordinate with the school.
I feel, okay, so, and I know I asked some people about this.
I think they did vote on
I-
a new calendar for next year, so we
Yeah.
could look.
I feel like it aligns with teacher conferences or something, or has for some school systems. In particular, Indigenous Peoples' Day. I'm not sure about Juneteenth.
School's
They're not
out
in
for
school then.
Juneteenth.
Okay, oh, right, sorry, you guys.
We
I
could
know
send
that
them
we
back
did-
to school that day. And this is the one day out of the summer you go to school.
We did celebrate Juneteenth this year. Erica did a phenomenal job partnering over at Drury Lane Books, and we had really great attendance
That says
doing the
something.
program.
Yeah.
I would kind of like to see the library closed for both Indigenous Peoples' Day and Juneteenth. I think you could do, especially this year, Juneteenth is a Sunday. You could do special events that Saturday when people would be available and still do special programming relative to the holiday, but recognize the holiday the same way we do Martin Luther King Day or President's Day or Veterans Day, and say that staff can observe that in their own way.
Are we open on, or not? They're not
No.
generally open on
Yeah,
Sundays.
that caught my ear too. I was like, oh, wait a minute, if Juneteenth is on Sunday, then that part of the discussion's almost moved because we'd be closed anyways. And all that being said,
Yeah, they have school
But if-
next year
Yeah, never mind.
on the
And,
10th.
And just to.
okay, there is school on October
Okay.
10th. So,
Yeah, they do have a
Then-
PDD day or Teacher's Day on that Friday prior, on the 7th. So,
School is in. And I want to make sure I go back,
yeah.
Michael, to your comment about making sure Juneteenth is on here.
Yeah.
And I love that idea. Everything on here except for Christmas Eve is on here because it's in the union. I mean, I think that it's here because it's in the union
Contract.
contract, thank you. And Juneteenth hasn't had a chance to be
Yeah.
discussed.
And so maybe
But
we
I can put it on.
plug it in as a placeholder for the moment until we
Yeah.
get
Yeah.
that.
okay, so,
So we'll need,
so Juneteenth is on a Sunday.
do we need a motion for that, to add that? Or is that just an administrative?
Well, we would add it, we would add it to this, and then we'd have a motion to approve all this.
Okay,
It's kind
I
of
got you.
what we would-
So not each piece, but the whole.
Yeah.
Got it.
To amend the calendar and then
Okay.
move it, but, so I heard Sarah, you say, being closed on Indigenous Peoples' Day, which is Monday.
Yep.
Further thoughts on that after we've kind of gone around? You were thinking,
I was, yeah.
oh, you were,
I was
okay.
thinking along the lines.
Earlier, we were thinking,
Yeah,
open,
yeah, and I
but-
got that, but I just felt different, I mean, especially once Anna was, talking about, on Juneteenth, you can imagine the kind of dialogue that might happen, and I kind of got that. But I think with Indigenous Peoples' Day, that's definitely a separate category, and it really should be a closed day. Should be, my opinion. I
Yeah.
think we should be closed.
Yeah.
Okay.
what are your thoughts, Sue? Is that?
I think it's, as you gather to all the evidence here, it feels better to close,
Yeah.
on this particular calendar especially.
Yeah.
With school being open that day and Juneteenth falling on a Sunday, it sort of might be easy to just do the closed route.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it is showing respect, and we can still educate. I mean, I think it's,
Yeah.
Yeah,
isn't it Indigenous Peoples' Month? I mean, like,
yeah.
Yep.
that's, there's plenty of opportunity for having,
Oh, and then we're missing St. Patrick's Day, I'd just like to.
fair enough. Counselor Gary.
Just saying.
We'll talk to the unions about that. So
Yes.
should we be open or closed on St. Patrick's Day?
Right.
okay, so what I'm hearing is that we're thinking being closed on Indigenous Peoples' Day.
Mhm.
And I'm comfortable with that. Thoughts from staff or, you know, I always want to hear input. Any inklings, impressions?
Indecision.
No, that's fine.
Yeah,
You don't
yeah,
need to,
it's-
you don't need to say
It's,
anything.
it really is, it really is a new question, I feel, because the way that we are viewing one another has changed so much in the last few years. And I think these questions are brand new and healthy to be having. And I think having the library be closed on holidays that are union approved and paid holidays really simplifies our scheduling picture. And
Oh,
I think that Sarah makes a really excellent point that we can also be celebrating around or before the date and doing really awesome programming. And I think the conversations around education are really important. And you do not have an action plan for 2022 yet, but I could easily see being a regular part of the library's operations is celebrating both Indigenous Peoples' Day and Juneteenth somehow, like making sure that it's a part of our repertoire, that we're
Yeah.
doing some sort of education and celebration.
Yeah.
and I, thank you.
Mhm.
I don't mean to drag this on. I'm also, so I asked for staff opinion. I'm also trying to think of the other side of things. I'm trying to think of the kids, because after school is a big deal at the library between, you know, 3 and 5. And as a kid, I would be bummed out if the library was closed on a Monday after school. But I think it is
Most
the
of your
most.
classmates wouldn't, but, no.
I'm sorry?
Most of your classmates wouldn't, but.
Oh, there goes the milk tea. I ain't going to the library.
I'm just, but I do think this is the best way to respect the day, so.
Yeah.
um,
And although.
So I just went in a circle there.
Yeah, and I do hear that. I do think, though, that, I mean, we wouldn't want to close silently, like, we're just
Right,
closed
oh,
this
no,
day.
yeah, I'm sure there'll be.
I mean,
yeah.
so, but I think, yeah, there are going to be people who are going to be coming to the door like, what? Like, why are they closed? Educational opportunity right there on the door. You could just say, like, boom, we're closed this day for this reason. Yeah.
All right,
I appreciate that we'd be treating each of the holidays the same.
okay, well. So we can add that to the list of being closed, and I'd entertain the motion to approve that updated holiday schedule for 2022.
So, wait, so what did we say? I just want to get.
Closed on Indigenous Peoples' Day, Monday, October 10th.
And adding
And
Juneteenth
adding-
as a recognized holiday.
We can, I don't know. Can
We
do
don't really
that?
have the
Adding it
authority
as a
to do that.
closure. Are you adding it as a closure?
Yes, even though
Yes.
it's Sunday.
Well, we just start the ball.
Yeah.
Right.
Double closed.
More closed than
We
usual.
are really close.
We're super duper closed right now.
You know,
Yes.
it's adopting a holiday calendar, so, yeah, it's just putting that in there as recognizing it.
Yeah.
It is.
So, I would support that.
Well, are you making it?
I'll make that motion
Okay.
to bring in Juneteenth as a closed day and being closed on Indigenous Peoples' Day as well.
Okay. A motion. Is there support?
I think that's right.
That's right. I'll second that.
Okay. Motion and support. Any further discussion? If not-
Yes.
Oh, yeah?
I do,
Okay.
all of a sudden.
Yep, please.
So I'm just wondering how this works. We're talking about Juneteenth being double closed, and then it occurred to me, generally when you have a federal holiday, right, you follow banker's calendar. If it falls on Sunday, it's celebrated on Monday. So are you asking me to be closed on Monday? I guess would be the real question.
Oh, there we
there.
go.
That popped into my mind.
That's a
Yeah.
great question, and I think that's a,
And it does,
That's a
if
very-
it does become a federal holiday, that's how it would work, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's a great point, and that was not my intention, but it is now. How does everyone else feel about that?
I would support that.
So we will follow the baker's rule.
The baker? The bakers.
The baker's rule.
All right, so now it is, so just, there's a motion and a second,
Yeah.
and
Do we
it
have to
sounds
amend
like
that?
through that discussion, we have a potential amendment.
Yeah, and I would amend that
Okay?
with the following what would be the normal federal calendar in terms of saying when that day is.
Baker's holiday, right?
Yeah.
Sarah, do you have the support that amendment?
I do support that amendment.
Okay. All right, so now we're adding Indigenous Peoples' Day as a closed holiday for the library,
Mhm.
as well as Juneteenth, or
Mhm.
the Monday after, rather.
Mhm.
Any further discussion? Had really good discussion, and really appreciate staff input.
Yeah, thank you.
So I'll call the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. Yay, thank you. And that brings us on to our meeting schedule for 2022.
Try.
No, that's
You're
okay.
doing great.
I heard lots of noises and I didn't know what was going on, and then now I do.
The mouse was out of control.
I think, so how does this time work for people? Maybe we should just go around. I think there's been concerns in the past from Sue, maybe?
Every time is really bad for me. I'll roll with it.
Okay, so this is as acceptable as it gets.
They're just, unless you want to meet at 1 in the afternoon, which nobody else could do. This is a time when I am busy, but I am making it work mostly.
Okay.
Mhm.
Well, I certainly do appreciate your efforts there, and I would also like to explore the potential of zooming in if need be. We can do
Yeah.
that.
Well, we've almost Zoomed here a couple times, but the notice required. And
Right,
this
yes.
is something Amanda and I are going to talk about more.
Okay.
Like this time, I said maybe I should Zoom when I saw the weather'd be bad, but I needed so much notice this time because of the
3 days, yep.
weekend
It is 3
and.
days.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it is, we'll come up with something, I think, but it is, the Zooming, when you need a pretty long notice for a public meeting, has thwarted my best intentions a couple times.
Could you always just put in your Zoom notice,
That's what I'm thinking maybe
no
I
matter
should
what,
do.
and
Yeah.
then if you show up, hey, nice surprise?
Yeah, yeah,
There we go.
I think that's.
I mean, that's not,
No, that's legit, that's legal, is my understanding.
Yeah, but I was under the impression, and again, I don't have it right in front of me, but I believe there was, at least in state law, there was a stipulation that you could still do it by phone.
Oh,
That seems awkward.
Oh, okay, gotcha. But I mean, I was just in terms of
Yeah.
having.
and
an
not
option.
noticing it, is that what you're
Yeah,
saying?
like there
Yeah,
was some,
Yeah.
but this was like,
that's a good option I mean, just for the convenience factor, or if we just always post it for your house.
yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
There you
Uh,
go.
But I think the catch there is that you just need to be comfortable with people showing up to your house, because it's a public
Well,
place then,
I
but,
can do it in the lodge, which is actually
There we
a
go.
public place.
Yeah, there you
There's
go.
no problem with that. We
Yep.
just have to work these little kinks out.
yeah. Well, I appreciate your willingness to both be here and/or look further into that, so thank you.
And I mean, I definitely want to make sure so that you're getting the support that you need, and that 3-day thing really is tricky.
And is that must be
when-
written into the state law somewhere?
When we post, just to clarify, once we post that the meeting is open, once we post that someone is going to be Zooming, is going to be holding, what you're posting is almost a special meeting. You're posting that the library board is going to meet here and simultaneously at another location. So once we do that, then somebody has to be there running the meeting. So if you post it 3 days in advance that you're gonna be there, then you actually
Okay.
wanna stay.
So you have
Because
to.
one of the questions I was looking into for us, for you, Sue, was whether we can just post it at the beginning of the year that the meeting is happening here and also at Bearskin Lodge. But what happens then is somebody has to be there to run the open public meeting of the board at the other location.
There must be a member present.
I think so.
Yeah.
What's that?
I'll strike that idea.
And doggone it, I mean, and like all the county commissioners in the state are just like, come on, state legislatures, let's do something about this. And they did revisit the open meeting law.
Yeah,
And there was the emergency order, which gave
Yeah.
variance to that.
yeah.
But they didn't do anything substantial enough to really enable us. And I think what they weren't seeing is the impacts it was having on localities. They were seeing more of the state level shenanigans going on because there is various committees, which are different from our subcommittees, like doing all kinds of not great things. So that's kind of where they were at. But I'm really hoping, and I don't get the impression there's anyone championing this or pushing for it, but I'm just really hoping they could distinguish between state open meeting law and local open meeting law. But boy, making things more complicated,
Yeah.
two sets of laws, it's probably not going to happen, so.
So I'll just roll with whatever time we plan here, and don't
Okay.
worry about me.
Okay. And I know it's, the time is working out okay for you?
Yeah.
Okay. And Michael? Yep.
Yep.
Okay. Great. Well, as far as the dates are concerned, I mean, that was part of the question. That's working out, and so I'm assuming that is. But going down to the last two, I like those alternatives. Wednesday, the 16th, and frankly, I don't like the Wednesday the 16th, actually. I was just trying to think of, or wait a sec.
Thursday, the 17th would be fine. It's just it's the third Thursday instead of the fourth.
Okay.
Otherwise, it's on Thanksgiving Day.
So we're just doing it 1 week earlier.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, yeah.
It's a federal holiday, we can't make him work.
I'm sorry?
It's a federal holiday, we can't make him work.
On the, yes, on the Thanksgiving. But the 17th, we're in the clear. I don't know why I got confused there for a second, but that's, okay, so we don't need that alternative.
Right.
But then, oh, and there's more, wait. And then Thursday, the 15th for December, I would prefer. Is
Over
that-
the 22nd.
I think so.
22nd's too close.
Yeah.
Is that okay with everybody?
So move to the 15th, is that what you just?
Of
said?
December.
Okay.
So we're gonna stick with November 17th, and then move our December meeting to Thursday, the 15th. Is that good with you, Michael?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Well, I'll entertain that motion then. And you know what? I'm gonna make that motion.
Oh.
Is there support?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Sue.
I would third it.
Yep. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed, same sign. And motion passes unanimously. Very good. On to our unfinished business. The revision of policies G and G1 for the library director review. And I see we have an updated draft here. Thank you for your work on that, Sarah. And incorporating NO's language from the evaluations. I don't know why I'm still not, I have not, and maybe it's just personal, but I have not been able to wrap my head around this document. Like, just reading through it, I've just struggled. And I don't have anything specific to comment on about that, and so I apologize for my personal difficulties, apparently. But I would really appreciate the board's further input and just discussion around it. If the board would like to adopt this, edit it some more, or what have you.
I'd like to propose an edit on
Okay?
the evaluation period, the front page there. And,
In the instructions? Or, I'm sorry?
no, referring, in the, explain your strengths, weaknesses, out of that.
Self-assessment?
Oh, I see.
yeah.
Okay, yep.
Yeah. I tried to come up with some better language for that. So I said, explain areas of competency and then opportunities for improvement and throwing out weaknesses. And I put in gaps needing coverage to say, yes, there's some things, nobody's perfect. Everybody has their strengths. Everybody can improve in some things, but almost everybody has something that, no matter how much time and effort it's not going anywhere, and we shouldn't expect her to do everything and know everything. So,
Right.
have the director say, you know what? This is kind of part of my job description, but I'm never going to do it. But I have a great staff, and they're going to cover, and they're going to, to negotiate. Yep, these are the things I'm putting, and maybe sometimes it's time that we are overwhelming you, and so here I can focus on these things, but these things are getting left to the side. And we're supposed to be doing them. It's supposed to be under my purview as a director, but can I put this onto staff who have expertise in this or are willing to learn in this, so.
Yeah.
So I would say instead of strengths, weaknesses, and opportunities for growth, it's areas of competency, opportunities for improvement, and gaps needing coverage. And we can play with the language, but I think that's a little better than strengths and weaknesses. And
That's vague.
I like that.
Yeah, I
Thank
do.
you so much for your ideas here. When I hear gaps needing coverage, what my interpretation of that would be is I would come back and say, board, we've got all these technology demands and I can't keep up, and it's not appropriate to give it to my clerk who's not in the appropriate pay grade, is not in the appropriate position to be delegated that work, who happens to have the skill. We need to fund the library differently in order to fill this gap in coverage. The way that you were presenting it, I know my reaction about the gaps needing coverage of, I think it's okay for you to hold the director accountable for all of the library's operations and to not be too concerned as to whether I'm delegating it down or not, or I might not be on the same page yet of what gaps in coverage meant for you.
Well, I'm just trying to come up with a different, and maybe just areas of competencies and opportunities for improvement, and just leave weaknesses out of there altogether. But you're hired. We're not. It's not a job interview. We don't. We hired you, so we assume that you're covering everything at least adequately, and and if you say, well, I'm competent, and the director, not trying to pick on you, but the director says, oh yes, I'm competent in this area, but then we can say, well, no, you're not because of these reasons, and then that turns into an evaluation. But say, I really suck at public relations, here's my weakness, and that's always, so yeah, I'm gonna amend and say, let's just keep it as areas of competency and opportunities for improvement, and just throw weaknesses out, because I think that's, tell us what you're bad at. Well, that's an opportunity for improvement, or,
Yeah.
I need to find another job.
So you're using gaps needing coverage as an exchange for weaknesses.
Yeah,
Okay.
And so, so we went in a little bit of a circle there, I think.
Yeah.
And so the
But-
latest, the last language was to pull the gaps part out as well? Is
Yeah.
that right? Okay.
Yeah, and just to explain your areas of competency and opportunities for improvement.
Okay,
I think
That's
that would,
adequate.
I think that's adequate.
okay,
Yeah.
okay, yep.
Yeah.
I don't have,
you.
I currently don't have, I don't, like I said, I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around this. So that's my gap right now.
Well, that's why we're here.
Yeah, thank you for covering my gaps.
I mean, I know you guys have been talking about this, but I like the idea of letting people with words speak. And I don't necessarily, I think, I'm not sure how much we need to say even explain your strengths, weaknesses, and opportunities. We could probably just say like, hey, explain how well you performed. Like, just give it to us. Like, what do you think? We want them to tell us what they think. And I would suspect they're gonna put in all that. And they're gonna ask for what they want. Because, well, actually, we do ask them what they want, but that's just a thought.
So you're saying, don't say, explain your strength.
I'm just saying it may not be necessary. I don't know.
Okay.
I know we've been.
But
crafting-
instead,
Just kind of leaving it, you could just full stop right there, just say like, you know, how well have you performed? Like, how did this go?
oh, I see,
And just let it ride.
I see.
And
We
see.
don't-
I mean, again, I'm assuming we've, hired an adult who's competent, and so they're not gonna leave it like 2 sentences and say, there you go, I did pretty good.
I did good, yeah.
This,
So-
NOS kind of gives you some parameters where to
I mean, I know if I
start.
were in her shoes, I'd prefer what Enno's
Yeah,
put down.
that's what I'm thinking.
And not like what I put down,
Yeah,
but I also
too
know
vague.
that sometimes when you leave it open,
You get more or
things
something?
come out that you wouldn't have even thought were there. So
Okay.
just,
Yeah. Or it's more of a conversation starter than a judgment.
Sure, yeah.
yeah. But, and on the other hand, I mean, taking Miss St. John out of this, if a person came to it and they'd be like, come on, give me something, then we could say that piece of, strength, weaknesses, and blah, blah, blah. And then, thank you. Like, my kids would love that. They don't like open-ended. They just tell me what you want to know. So, I don't know.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Any thoughts from this side of the?
I like what NO wrote.
Yeah. I would do a little more, because it says, please explain, so maybe instead of explain your areas of competency, include.
Okay.
So we'll use that, include your
Nice.
areas of competency and opportunities for improvement.
Yep.
I like that. The only tweak I would say is please include.
Ooh, I like that.
Thank you.
But I would like to emphasize the opportunities. Let's emphasize. Just like underscore it.
Yeah.
Sure.
Maybe bold, too.
So please include your strengths and opportunities for improvement? Is
Please
that?
include your areas of competency and opportunities for
Oh,
improvement.
thank you, yeah. Okay. It seems like we're all pretty good with that. If we were to ask you that question right now, would you be comfortable? I mean, we're not, but does that?
We're not,
does
but
that-
maybe we are.
No,
No,
okay.
but would that work? Would that be helpful?
I need to improve my mechanical domain language, building facility language. The red thing on the wall, maybe I'll start there. I think this would be great.
Okay,
Okay.
good. Okay, so I'm working off the computer here, please forgive me. That was on the Director Self-Assessment tab. Do
Yeah.
we want to work
Yeah.
onto the Strategic Plan tab or the job-specific expectations, or are there further thoughts from y'all? I have a really hard time with measurable goals.
Yeah.
We talked a little bit about this last time.
Yeah.
And yet, we need to quantify, or maybe we don't. It can be helpful to quantify when we're evaluating. You look like you want to say something, Steve.
I just hate quantifying
Yeah.
anything like that.
Yes, yeah.
Some things just don't have a quantity.
Yeah, I mean, but not everything in here has to be quantified. I mean, as we go forward from this, you know, what's one or two things in each area that you think that you want to work on this year and you think you can achieve, you know, rather than, okay, split out everything, you know, split out your hours, how much, you know, I think one or two would be doable to help us and yourself, to help everybody say, yes, okay, you know, I mean, beside all the other stuff, here's one or two goals, and maybe the goal is just, okay, we grew the program this time, we grew the program, and we want to keep it going at the current level. You know, it doesn't always have to be that we want to increase it 50% or we want to increase it 10%. We started this under expanding the library's reach, and it's serving well, and we want to make sure we continue to put the energy into it to keep it at its current level of outreach. Yeah.
I feel this is where the action plan can help.
Mhm.
I almost want to see, I was almost looking for like a number one that is, does the director have a plan of action for ensuring progress on the strategic goals? And you would know that I do. And then it would be, has the director shown progress in area 1, celebrating diversity? And you should be able to know either from my conversations with you at board meetings, or you could require like quarterly reports showing progress. We've done something like that in the past too, where I can show you, kind of like when we did the strategic plan review, and I said, here are all the things that you guys approved that we were going to work on. Here's our progress so far and where we're getting stuck. And then you also know some of this information was roadblocks to achievement. The question in here is, where have there been roadblocks to achievement? But what might actually be more helpful for us to discuss in an evaluation is, how has the director sufficiently addressed roadblocks? Like, do you feel that this person is overcoming the challenges? If there's a particular challenge that the person is struggling with, then it can become an area of growth, right? We
Yeah.
see for you, Amanda, that you're really struggling when you need to work with contractors. We see for you that you're really struggling when, you know, in technology, and we'd like you to focus on that area. Whenever you're trying to do your strategic goals, or action plan, we notice that you get stuck at the same place every time. We want to see you improve that area.
So you're saying don't just stop at where have there been roadblocks, but
It doesn't
with
help.
just identifying roadblocks and then also how they're being addressed
So I want you to think about
for the growth.
where I'm going is, I think there's something in here about how well does the library director communicate with the board? That's going to be job specific expectations. How well is your director communicating with the board? And part of it is, does the director communicate problems or issues that come up? So technically, if I'm doing my job according to this appraisal, I'm regularly coming to you with reports, and I'm telling you where we're getting stuck, when it makes sense to share that information. And also, hopefully I'm doing some kind of a reporting to you back on the strategic plan, since it's such a huge part of what your role involves for the library. when I bring up a roadblock, am I following through and actually addressing it? So hopefully you would already know what the roadblocks have been, because I should have talked to you, the director would have talked to you about them and asked for your help or clarification or something. I think if you had someone who had gone through this process a couple of times, they would begin to develop a core way of working that includes reporting the roadblocks and the overcoming them part. So I'm just wondering if this area could address that.
So where have the roadblocks, where have there been roadblocks to achievement, and how have they been addressed?
How
have they been
how
addressed?
has the director overcome any roadblocks to achievement?
Yeah,
How has the
seems-
director resolved them?
Or just, or they don't necessarily have to be resolved, but how have they been taken out or addressed, I guess is.
Addressed is
Maybe
good.
the best language. But yes, so it identifies the roadblock, which is helpful, and also identifies potential actions to overcome that, because that is at least as maybe more valuable than,
Yeah.
equally valuable as to what the roadblock is. So.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, anytime you start a program, you're gonna have roadblocks.
Oh, yeah, just about,
Measurable goals and timelines would be awesome if it was like, we intend to hold 25% more programs this year, or the pandemic is a really great example. We know that the pandemic happened. We can't live in it's still pandemic land forever. How is the director going to improve visitation numbers? How is you could have the 2019, 2018, 2019 scheme of how many people were attending the library, and we can show how numbers changed. If the board was concerned about that, it might fall under strategic goals, it might not. But it would be like, is the director addressing this issue? But that seems more operational than strategic goals. But I think a lot of this is really hard to measure. I'm thinking of the different projects that we have going on right now related to the strategic plan, and it's like the drinking fountain where I'm trying to get a plumber, and the sidewalk where I'm waiting for a contractor. But it's like it's either done or it's not. There's not a whole lot of measurable there. But we don't really have a lot of items in our action plan where we're actually trying to improve a problem area.
Well, that would fall under comfortable place, visit a comfortable place, so it's, now we have the water planter in there, now the sidewalk's been fixed, now we have the ping pong table outside where people can play. I mean, those are concrete things that have been added to make this place more accessible, more visible, more comfortable.
But their measurement is just whether they're done.
Binary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know, I'm just talking about the measurable thing because it's on we're talking about it.
Yeah, I do have, I think it's important to be able to identify or measure, but it's just really hard for me to do that part of it with the measurable, whether it's a percentage or just numbers, but different minds work different ways, and so, achievable goals? Or just goals? What are the goals for this past year?
I like that.
If this is based on strategic goals, then, when the next set of strategic goals is out, as they come out, then that will get dovetailed into this.
Yeah. Or
Because
action.
because when the strategic goals are set, there has to be some way to say, yes, at least we worked on these. They were addressed, they were worked on, you know.
Yes, yeah.
Here's what we would consider success, here's what we would consider adequate, here's what we would consider, yeah, we blew it.
Well, and
You know,
that's,
but at least we're working, you know.
if we jump to the second, so I'm on number 1, celebrate diversity. If we jump to the second question, how has the director, staff, and community achieved these goals? We could say, how has the director, staff, and community worked towards these goals versus achieving? I mean, that's, even just the actionable steps, I think would be valuable in an evaluation. And maybe that's not enough. Again, different minds work differently. Maybe that's not enough for, like, if some people want to be able to measure it versus just, for me, I just like to talk about it.
Well, and I think, you know, again, we were talking about 2 years ago, just sort of what our role is in this.
Uh-huh.
And that is where I'm tending more to think like you, like I'm not, I do feel like there's more of a narrative and a dialogue that we're as a board having. Because yes, we are, you know, assessing in a way, you know, but we're not like Administrator Roth, you know, that we're not that person to Miss St. John, right? That's not us.
Sure, yeah.
So really trying to represent the community and how the community would like to hear about what's happening with the library,
Sure.
what's happening with the library director, and what is happening or has happened in this category. Like, tell us about it. And, you know, and we live in the community, so in some ways we already can have some background to respond and say like, well, yeah, but it seemed like, you know, families did or didn't have X experience or whatever, and then we go into more of that type of thing. But again, getting to the point about, you know, how do we get to something that's easily quantified? Maybe there just isn't something that's easily quantified.
Sometimes. But
Yeah,
sometimes
I mean,
not.
because, no, you're right. I mean, we can always see, like you were saying before, like we can see who came in and how
Sure.
often and all those kinds of, so there are elements of
Circulations
that.
or, yeah.
But there are,
I got a question. If I leave, is this no longer a quorum?
Oh, no, we're good, but.
Okay, because
We-
I have a meeting at 7 o'clock that
Oh,
I'm
boy.
supposed to be starting
Oh.
on Zoom. I just saw it, I got 5 minutes to get
Okay,
to my
and we,
next.
again, we don't have to do this right
This is-
now. This is
this
a
is
process,
actually
and we want to make
unfinished.
sure that we own it. And,
Can we continue next meeting?
absolutely.
yeah.
Let's do that. I
Yeah.
think we're kind of spinning here.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
It's been long
It's-
enough. It's been 2 hours, and, yeah.
Yeah,
It'd
no,
be
true.
good.
We
And if
did a lot of good.
frankly, I think if we could put this at the beginning of next meeting, we'll have
Yeah.
more energy for that and can hopefully get into it a little bit more
Yeah.
earlier on. We'll see if that works.
And we did want to get this wrapped up by some date. Isn't that true?
Nope.
We have
No.
whatever time
Nope.
we need?
Yeah, this is for Amanda's benefit and our benefit to be able to have a
Yes.
dialogue and so we just want to get it in place and make sure we own it, so, thank you, Anno.
Happy holidays, everybody.
Yeah,
Yeah,
see you.
We'll see you,
Happy
see you
holidays.
next year here.
So let's think about things that we talked about today, look at it again, and drag this thing back out again next time.
Yep, and
Here's another good-
I'll try my darndest, I'll try to identify what I am struggling with exactly. And it might just be the screen itself, and if I print it off and look at it, I don't know. Well, I'll wrestle more, so I apologize for
have a
that.
printed copy if you would really like one.
That, I don't know yet.
It's right here.
But thank you very much, and maybe I will take it and put it in my folder here. But I don't know why I'm struggling so much with this. It could just be that I haven't done it or built it before, and so, yeah.
I guess my takeaway from today is, board, what do you expect of me? And can this tool help us communicate the answer? So if you're not really expecting me to deliver metrics and measurables and like be obsessive about data, if that's not what you expect of me, what is?
Mhm.
And can this help you talk to me about that?
Yeah, yeah.
When it comes, short answer, just knee jerk for me. I really appreciate seeing our circulation numbers and any of that stuff, but I don't think I would put it in an evaluation. So,
I mean, to some degree, some of that you should be doing, right? I mean, that's just part of the job. But yeah, I was struggling too, because I just feel like there's so much more to the answer than can be easily found in the numbers. I mean, you can point to the numbers and they're helpful and they give us some inkling of like where things have been happening or not happening, but it wouldn't be sufficient, like necessary but not sufficient, okay?
yeah. All right, well, our next meeting is January 27th,
Woo!
5 o'clock.
It's a long gap.
Yeah, it's a long time off. We'll see if we can remember what we've been talking about.
Oh my gosh.
And with no further ado, I think I can ask for a motion to adjourn here.
So moved.
Thank you, and we have support, I presume.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. We are adjourned. Thank you very much. Oh,
Thank you.
thank you. Thank you.